Dr. Emily Harris had been on call at St. Jude's Hospital more times than she could remember, but tonight felt different. The October air seeped through the cracked windows, leaving a thin chill in the psychiatric wing. She pulled her white coat tighter around her shoulders and tried to ignore the flickering fluorescent light above the nurses' station. She had been a psychiatrist for 8 years, long enough to know that routine could be a comfort in a place like this. Still, something about tonight kept her senses sharp. It wasn't just the storm outside, though thunder rolled across the city in a way that rattled the old panes of glass. It was the patient in room 6. Her name was Margaret Lewis, 71 years old, admitted 3 weeks ago after a psychotic break. She had been found wandering the streets barefoot, muttering about voices under the floor. When the police brought her in, she fought with the strength of someone half her age. Since then, she had not spoken a single word. Margaret sat silently during sessions, staring at corners of the ceiling as if listening. Her medical charts showed no dementia, no schizophrenia, just silence. The other staff called her the silent patient. Tonight, Dr. Harris was alone with her. Around midnight, Emily made her rounds. Room 6's door was slightly ajar, though she remembered closing it earlier. A draft slid into the hallway. She pushed the door open and found Margaret sitting upright in her bed, eyes fixed on the far wall. "Margaret?" Emily whispered. No response. The room was dim, lit only by the buzzing fluorescent above the bed. Emily stepped inside, clipboard in hand. "You're awake," she said gently. "Do you want to talk tonight?" Margaret didn't move, but then, very slowly, she raised a hand and pointed to the corner of the room. Emily turned. At first, she saw nothing, just peeling paint, an old radiator, shadows cast by the storm. But then, she heard it. A faint tapping. Tap, 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 coming from behind the wall. Emily frowned, stepping closer. "It's just the pipes, Margaret. Old buildings do this." Margaret shook her head slowly, her first deliberate movement in days. Her eyes glistened with fear. And then she whispered, her first words since arriving, "Hungry." The next morning, shaken but curious, Emily dug through Margaret's belongings, which had been taken at admission. Old notebooks, scraps of paper, an audio cassette. She borrowed a player from records and pressed play. Static, a long pause, then a woman's voice, Margaret's. "If you hear them, don't answer. If you answer, they'll come closer. Don't feed them. Don't—" The tape cut out. Emily rewound, listening again. The fear in Margaret's recorded voice was unlike anything she'd heard from her in person. It was raw, almost feral. She returned to room 6 with the tape. "Margaret, I found this. Do you remember?" Margaret didn't answer. She just pressed a finger to her lips, silencing Emily. Then, in a voice hoarse and dry, "They're already here." That night, the tapping grew louder. By the third night, Emily hadn't slept properly. The storm outside was relentless. Power lines flickered. At 3:14 a.m., the lights went out. The emergency generator kicked in, but dimly. The hallways became tunnels of shadow. From down the hall came a metallic scraping, like nails dragging across steel. Emily grabbed a flashlight and ran toward the sound. It was coming from room 6. She opened the door and froze. Margaret was standing beside her bed, both hands against the wall. Her fingers were bent unnaturally, pressing into the plaster as if it were soft clay. She turned slowly, eyes white, and whispered, "Too late, too late, too late." The wall bulged behind her. Something was pressing from the other side. The plaster cracked, releasing a sour stench of rot. The bulge grew until a hole split open, revealing darkness beyond. Emily stumbled back, flashlight trembling. She could swear she saw something shift inside the hollow space, long limbs folding, unfolding. Then the tapping began again, louder, faster. Margaret collapsed, screaming now, words spilling out after weeks of silence. They live in the walls. They follow me. They eat. A hand shot out from the crack, pale, too thin, with joints bent backward. It clawed at the air, before retreating. Emily slammed the emergency alarm, but the intercom only hissed static. The thing was gone. The crack sealed itself as if it had never been there. Margaret lay unconscious, a faint smile on her lips. Over the next week, staff began to disappear. A nurse named Kelly never clocked out after her shift. An orderly went into the basement to check the breaker and never returned. Security cameras showed only static during the hours they vanished. Emily became obsessed with Margaret's notes, filling her own journals with sketches of cracks, hollow spaces, skeletal hands. She barely ate. In her dreams, she heard it. Tap, 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 always behind the walls. And Margaret whispered in her sleep, one word over and over: hungry. Emily finally pieced it together. Margaret hadn't lost her mind. She had been hiding from something all her life. Moving apartments, never staying in one place, sealing vents, covering outlets. She believed the things in the walls fed on silence, on isolation. They only came when no one was looking. And now, with the hospital nearly empty at night, they had the perfect feeding ground. Emily confronted her. "Margaret, how do I stop it?" Margaret's eyes glistened with tears. "You don't. You join them." The storm reached its peak. Water flooded the basement, shorting the last of the power. The hospital fell into darkness. Emily made her way to room 6 with only a lantern. But the bed was empty. The walls pulsed, cracked, bulged. From every corner came whispers, overlapping voices, hungry and eager. "Emily, Emily." Hands burst through the plaster, dozens of them, clawing, grasping. She ran, lantern swinging wildly. The corridors shifted, stretched, as if the building itself was alive. She reached the stairwell, but found it blocked by rubble. The only way was back toward room 6. She entered to find Margaret standing inside the open cavity of the wall. Her face was serene, her arms outstretched. "There, waiting for you." The lantern flickered, and Emily felt cold hands on her shoulders, pulling her in. St. Jude's was condemned 6 months later, after a mysterious fire gutted the psychiatric wing. Official reports claimed faulty wiring, but no bodies were ever recovered. Not Margaret's, not Dr. Harris's. The wing was sealed, but sometimes, late at night, security guards swear they hear it. Tap, 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 from behind the walls.